Hello and welcome to Sideways. This week we're off to Portugal to find out how they've made such a difference with their forward-thinking policies on addiction. I'll also be amazed that Martin isn't familiar with those little Portuguese custard tarts that are so delicious. Portuguese Model.
You're on time.
Morning. I'm always on time, mate. It's spot on 10:30.
You were 1 minute late when I saw you the other day.
yeah, I was actually, yeah. But I got held up dramatically in the traffic.
I should point out, though, for the purposes of the recording, that you were 1 minute late from a safe social distance.
I was, yes.
Anyway, how are you?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Yeah, how about you?
Well, I'm okay. I'm pleased to see the sun shining again.
Yeah, it is. It's a bit of a nasty old day yesterday. I was a bit disappointed, though, after Boris's announcement that we can't, probably not going to be able to go to the barbers until at least the 1st of July at the earliest.
We're all going to look like Catweasel.
Well, I woke up this morning, I look like Beetlejuice, I reckon.
Have you considered taking matters into your own hands?
Yeah, I have, but I just look like madness when it's shaving off my hair.
Yeah, I might do that because, as you'll remember, I used to have a shaved head.
You did, yeah. So, yeah, you did. You did sport that look for a while, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm not sure I can go. I mean, it could be. Goodness knows when it's going to be. I don't think I can go on ad infinitum without a haircut. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
I know. Yeah, I know. We'll be having ponytails, won't we? Soon. We'll be like Andy Carroll before we know what's going on.
Remember you having long hair?
Yeah, I did. I never wore it in a ponytail, though.
No. Did you ever have a top knot?
No, I didn't. It wasn't fashionable back then, was it? You just let it grow long, and it was completely unkempt.
Yeah.
Just grew it as long as you possibly could, so it's halfway down your back. Yeah.
I never had hair that long. Mine was a little bit longer than shoulder length, but never went any further than that.
No. Yeah, it was all the rage at one time, wasn't it? You had to, yes, but it's part of growing up, really. It's a rite of passage, isn't it, to have long hair at some point?
I think so. Every man should grow a beard.
You should at some point, but the growing the hair was, I think, because it annoyed my parents, that made it much more attractive. Where growing a beard doesn't really annoy anyone.
Well, no, I suppose not. Is that what we're talking about today? Then hair.
Not really, no. I think we just sort of drifted onto that. It's a current topic, really, isn't it? A bit like masks. Masks are a current topic as well. You know, we might have to be wearing masks soon after all these weeks of saying, no, you don't need to wear them. And then there's suddenly saying, yeah, that might be a good idea.
Well, we have to fashion our own masks. I suppose we will, won't we?
Yeah, we will. Well, I've already looked into that because I have got some. Yeah, I have got some masks that I can wear for like work ones, but they're a little bit heavy duty, really. But I think I might make a few. I might make some masks. I've already got some ideas.
Could you make some masks with album covers on the front?
Exactly what I was thinking. I think one of the first. I was going to do a few little prototypes, but I think I quite like the idea of doing a. One based upon the Sex Pistols album, but never mind the virus. All right, so I have that on there.
Nice.
And I can make that up. Then I can then validate the use of safety pins on it rather than sewing. So it'll look the business, won't it?
Yeah, it's excellent. Could you do me a Journey one?
There's no American rock ones. That's definitely off out of bounds. I can't do one. See, I've got all stuttery just thinking about it. Yes. Anyway, on a more serious note.
Yeah, what are we talking about then?
Well, I was going to talk really about. Have you ever been to Portugal?
Do you know what? No.
Yeah. You've not been to Portugal?
No, I've never been to Portugal. I don't know how that happened.
No. It's. I've been a couple. I went to the Algarve many years ago before I was married. And I've also been to Madeira, the Portuguese island.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful. That's where Ronaldo was born.
Is it? Is that what we're going to talk about? Are we talking about your holidays today?
Well, we could do if you like, but I wanted to concentrate on Portugal, really. I'll tell you the reason why, okay? I just wanted to sort of go through the way that the Portuguese have handled drug laws.
Yeah.
And what they've done with it, and how we know now after so many years of it being in place that it does actually work.
Yeah.
And it's a model which I've looked at for some time. I've always been a bit of a fan of it. Even when I first came into recovery, I heard about it and I looked at it then. But we're a number of years on now, because it was back in the 1990s. Portugal had a really bad problem. They reckon, the country's, there's only about 10 million people in the country. It's not a massive country, but they reckon that about 1%, so 100,000 people at least, were hooked on heroin.
Wow.
Which is quite hard, isn't it, really? Which is quite a staggering statistic.
Yeah.
And it was the worst in Europe. It was worse than a lot of countries around the world, but certainly the worst in Europe. And today, many years later, they have the lowest. They've got the lowest rates of drug, alcohol, and tobacco use. So it's all changed, and there's a reason that it's changed. And I just wanted to go through some of that, really, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, that's fine. Will we be able to have some of those little custard tarts that you get?
From where?
They're Portuguese, aren't they? Those little custard tarts.
Are they? I don't know about anything about those.
Peri chicken?
Peri chicken. I think, are we stereotyping the Portuguese person here?
Probably, yeah.
We're getting into terrible trouble, I'm sure. But
that's good. No, I think that's a good idea, because it's, we spoke about this a long, long time ago, didn't we?
We did.
When we used to meet on Wednesday mornings in Pret a Manger for a coffee. Coffee?
We did.
A coffee, even.
You're trying to speak with a Portuguese accent now, are you?
I'm going to be accused of racism now.
Yeah, you are, yeah. It was quite good. It was very passable. I thought I was speaking to Jose Mourinho just for a moment there.
Anyway, so yes, I think it's a very good topic, because they had at the time, it was very forward thinking, wasn't it? They were very forward thinking ideas.
They did, but I think what was unique was that they didn't actually legalise any drugs, but they decriminalised every drug. Yeah. And I think there's a big difference, and people get confused about the difference between the two, and to why, when people think, if you're going to follow the Portuguese model, all you're doing is liberalising the drug market, which quite clearly it doesn't, because I'll go through how it works later on, but it's a tried and tested method now. We know it works, and it's just seems bizarre that we don't follow suit, or other countries that have similar problems, why they don't go down follow a similar pattern or similar model. Mm-hmm. But I think it is the situation where if people do get caught with drugs, they're not automatically criminalised. They don't automatically get a criminal record, and it's really important so they're not then outside of of society's circle. But I think that the Portuguese recognise that the war on drugs is one you're never going to win, is it? It's never going to go away. We know that prohibition doesn't work. We know that the harsher the penalties, it has absolutely no effect upon drug dealing and drug use, etc. So they had to look at a sort of a harm reduction method. And it took many years of many consultations to get to a point where it became law. But because they used to have pretty harsh penalties, a bit like the USA, really. But over time, and having studied it, they decided to view the problem as a public health issue and not a criminal justice problem, which again I think is a big change in emphasis. And after all these consultations, it wasn't until 2001 that the law became passed, or the law was passed, and it became enshrined in their statute, and it started to take shape. And I think the big difference is really that if someone's caught using or possessing drugs, they're still subject to arrest. Okay, so they still get arrested. They're still taken into the system. But it's what happens after the arrest which is unique with the Portuguese model, because as normally over here, you get hauled before the court, and then offenders, they get the fines, and then that gets ratcheted up, on second and third offences, etc. But over there, if you get arrested and you've got an amount on, and I'll go into the amounts in a minute because that's quite a significant point as well. You have to go before one of these health ministries' special panels. Now, on these panels, it's made up of social workers, doctors, judges, but they also have psychologists on there as well. psychiatrists, psychotherapists, which is something we banged on about for a long, long time, isn't it? Getting this interview, getting that help at that point. And they've decided that was the way to do it, and they set these up. And what these panels do then, they look at each individual set of circumstances. And the first thing they do, which I think is important, which is something you and I have talked about before, they sort of evaluate the offender's mental and physical health. So they look at that. That's the first thing they look at. And then after that, they also look at the social issues that are surrounding this person, which again is so important. I look at things like their schooling, I look at their employment or their housing, the home environment, etc. And if there's a problem in one of those areas, they have a referral system, so they get people involved at that stage to look at these issues, because they see that if they can get those bits sorted out, it removes some of the barriers to achieving recovery, which again is just so the right thing to do. So they're dealing with
they're dealing with what they are seeing as some of the underlying causes.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, they are, but they're doing it at an early stage as well, which I think is important. You can throw people into recovery, or ask people to go into recovery, or people can go into recovery themselves. And there's so many other barriers, so many other issues surrounding that use that you're just really looking at one aspect of the overall picture, just one part of it, and it needs to be dealt with. It needs to be dealt with holistically. It really does.
Yeah.
And just going back to that point about if you're arrested with an amount on you, they still make a distinction between what they consider a personal use amount, which in Portugal they say if you've got an amount on you which is roughly equivalent to about 10 days personal use or under that, that's when you go into this program. If it's over that, you're going to the criminal justice system as normal. So they still have the laws to deal with people that are quite clearly dealing.
What do you think of that? What do you think of that as a rule? Because surely, I mean, you know this better than I would. Surely there could be quite a variation between people as to what potentially 10 days personal use might constitute.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there is a certain amount, but I think that they do have they do. Sort of home in on that a little bit, because they say if you they use a judgment as saying like a gram of heroin, for example,
right, okay,
or 10 grams of opium and 25 grams of cannabis. So they do have they can put figures to it, but I think it's reasonably flexible as far as once the assessment has been made, etc. They can see what the level of addiction is really, and if they're casual users, which again is an important distinction to make, or if they are, if they do have got an addiction problem which needs to be dealt with.
It's a good job. It's a good job it didn't include alcohol as well, because 10 days personal use for you at your height would have required a lorry, wouldn't it?
I wouldn't be able to carry it. Yeah, no, exactly right.
You'd need a trolley, wouldn't you?
I'd have to use one of those cages they use in the supermarkets. You know what I mean? The high-sided cages with the straps around them. Anyway, I think you're taking the mickey out of my problems now. You're making it. You're taking the jocular angle at it, and it's a serious issue, young man. I'll have you know. Anyway, that's all way behind me now. It's all way behind me. But should we get back on track?
Yeah, if you want to. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You can take the mickey again later on if you like.
I'm going to. Yeah. I'm just jotting a few questions down because I can see you're on a roll today, and I don't want to interrupt your flow too much.
Well, I did do quite a bit of research on this one, because I didn't want to look at. Yeah, well, I didn't want to just look at sort of one person's idea of this, and so I looked at all angles. So I read up quite a few papers, and I just sort of amalgamated a few notes from these different papers that I read and different articles. So it's sort of a mishmash of that, but I had to bring it in some sort of order. So. Yeah, I did. I think I'm relying on my notes more today than I probably ever have before.
Wow, that's quite.
Is that worrying? Yeah, it is. Yeah, but so going back to it, okay, right. So where have we got to? So you've ruined my concentration levels here. Right. Yes. So it depends. So if someone is caught with less than the 10 days, reasonable 10 days personal use. They go towards this in front of these people, as we talked about, And typically, if they're first-time offenders, there's never normally a penalty anyway. They'll pay a small fine, or they'll do a few hours of community service. And those are people really that will deal with those people that are casual users. But if they come across, sorry,
what do you think about that? So would those people that only had enough for personal use also get the other kind of social interventions?
Yeah, they would. I mean, okay. They're given information also at that point about the physical, social, and psychological health impact of drug use. So to discourage their further use. So there's input at that point. So if you're a casual user, you get caught. They may give you a slap on the wrist at that point, but they will give you information. So it's education again at this point. So they're trying to deter people drifting from sort of social use, if you like, casual use, into a fully blown addiction.
Do you think that? So I mean, on the face of it, that would seem like an intervention that would have little or no impact. Don't you think?
I think it would. I think it has some impact. Apparently, it has some impact. I think casual users. There's always going to be casual users around. That's for sure. That don't drift into fully blown addiction. But I think it is a point of education. So if they stop a few people from going further with that problem by advising them of what the potential outcomes are going to be, I think it's a good thing. I think education is never about
really.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is, but I think it's the how they deal with the people that do have an addiction problem, which is the thrust of what I want to talk about here, because I think it's those individuals. They get encouraged initially onto these treatment programs. Okay, the treatment programs, which I'll go on to in a moment, but they're pretty comprehensive. But the thing is, they're immediately available. So as soon as they get caught, they can get put onto these courses within a few days. They're available. Unlike here, which can take an awful long time to get referred on, etc. And they're fully subsidised. So they're properly funded, which again I think is really important. Mm-hmm. And they've taken the point of view that the money that they can pour into this, they save further on down the line with dealing with the health issues and dealing with the criminal aspects of how of the way that addicts tend to drift into areas, unsociable areas, and certainly crime is one of those.
Yeah.
But they've also got set up the clinics for dealing out Suboxone and methadone. They've got needle exchanges, and they've also got these programs, which I think is really important, which are designed to incentivise businesses to hire recovering addicts. Now, that to me is a great step forward. It really is. I think it's so it's for those people in recovery, and being one of those people myself, initially. It's quite frightening entering back into society, because there's a stigma attached to it, and I think that it's encouraged if they can encourage employers to look more responsibly towards people like that are coming out of an addiction into recovery. It helps everyone, and it certainly helps the person that starts to then build a little bit of self-esteem and get back on their feet an awful lot quicker.
In your experience, when people are in recovery and going back into the job market, do you think people on the whole tend to be open about their historical problems with addiction or not?
No, they're not. No,
it's the stigma, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It is reducing that stigma, or getting rid of that stigma, which is an important aspect of it, of this program as well. So it is a holistic look at the whole of the addiction problem, and dealing with all aspects of that stop people going back into society, become useful members of society again.
Yeah.
Okay, so although these can be seen as interventions, they're not mandatory. But anyone, if you're found in Portugal, if you're repeatedly found with drugs and you refuse to go onto these treatment programs, which are free, they then do face an escalating series of sanctions. So it's designed to help people at the hub, but the legal system will still deal with those repeat offenders and drug dealers, etc. So it catches all areas. It catches everyone in that's ever get involved in any level of the drug culture. Mm-hmm. that can be dealt with, but dealt with appropriately. And I think the key feature, of this is that the decriminalisation wouldn't just work on its own. It has to be combined with with the rehabilitation of the offenders to have any significant positive impact. And now we've seen it work for so many years. We know that it does work. We know that it can be replicated.
Why do you think countries haven't kind of fallen over themselves to kind of copy the Portuguese model?
It's an interesting point. Apparently, politically, it was a tough one. Because this takes a radical change. It takes a radical change. It takes a radical change of thinking, and it's not a vote winner. We know that. Politicians shy away from dealing with this area. It's the first area where, if public funding needs to be cut in any areas, we're moving into austerity measures, for example, this is the first area they get rid of. They say, well, that can look after itself. That will rely on a lot of charities, etc.
Do you think part of the reason it isn't a vote winner is because the public, particularly those that have no knowledge at all of addiction, actually quite enjoy vilifying addicts?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I think it was a very easy target, isn't it? Very easy target.
It's the classic, if you've got a problem with drink or drugs, why don't you just stop?
Well, exactly that. And I think it's also, we've talked in the past about, different types of self-esteem. I think it makes people feel better if they've got someone to look down on. Mm-hmm. It boosts their own self-esteem by someone else's misery.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to look down your nose, isn't it? People that you see on the streets.
That's why begging EastEnders, isn't it? Because it makes you feel better about your own life.
Well, it does. Yeah, exactly. It does. Yeah, by using a sort of a negative stereotype, it makes your own life seem a little bit better. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and politically, not one they want to get involved in, and it's a long-term thing as well. And we know that most governments are, take short-term views. They're looking at, really, as soon as they get elected, they're sort of looking to build a government which is electable next time to keep their job.
Do you think one of the reasons that the Portuguese took, I mean, I don't know whether you kind of read anything around this, but do you think one of the reasons the Portuguese took such a kind of radical approach to it was because their problem had become so bad?
Yes, it did. And they knew it was starting to affect not just this sort of inner areas which were the poorest areas of the country. They'd noticed it had started to drift in some of the tourist areas, like the Algarve was starting to get a problem, for example. And I think they could see economically, on a microeconomic basis, that it was becoming a problem. And so they looked at it not just a viewpoint of it making sense to deal with the individuals that have this particular condition, but it would do the country good as a whole. And it has proved to be totally accurate.
Yeah. But once you start affecting the tourist industry there, I think that's pretty. You don't want people skinning up on the water slides, do you?
No, you don't. You don't want needles being found at the bottom of the swimming pool, do you?
Not really.
It's going to put people off a little bit, isn't it?
Really. Yeah.
But so they, and I think that the model to work properly, again, going back to what you're saying, the money that had previously been used for enforcing the drug laws and incarcerating offenders, etc., that has to be reallocated to subsidising addiction treatment programs. And we know that, again, with governments, under austerity measures, if there is a bit of spare capital, it doesn't go to there; it goes elsewhere. So if they take money from one area, it's not going to go towards helping people get out of drug addiction, etc.
So here's a question for you.
Okay.
The fundamental basis of the Portuguese approach was to, as you say, kind of decriminalise drug use.
Yeah.
What impact do you think it has on people in this country? The fact that drug users, addicts, generally are seen so easily as criminals.
Massively, but it's got a massive negative impact.
Yeah.
So as soon as you get a criminal record, you know that it's going to make things considerably harder.
So do you think there is so if you've got a criminal record, do you think there is a kind of early intervention of that feeling of, well, what's the point? I might as well take drugs now because it's all kind of downhill. I'm on a downward spiral.
Exactly. It makes it a lot harder. It makes it a lot harder to come back from that, very much so. It is this, it perpetuates itself. So, as soon as you get a criminal record, you find it harder to get a job, so you turn to more crime to subsidise your habit. So yeah, it has a big impact. It's not impossible to come back from. I've seen a lot of success stories of people you think, my God, how your life really was rock bottom. They've been in prison for a long time. They've come out. They thought the chances of employment were low, and gradually they've been able to get back into society. But it's not that simple. But I think if we made that path easier and took away the stigma, then it would make things an awful lot better for those people that have had a problem in the past to get back on their feet.
Yeah, I mean, it seems mad, doesn't it, that people have got to get better in spite of society rather than getting better, because society's supporting them and helping them. I mean, it's quite a dispiriting thought, to be quite honest.
It is a dispiriting thought, but I know when they've talked to the people in Portugal now that have seen this work over so many years. So we're 19 years down the line now, nearly 20 years since this was first introduced. Most Portuguese people now view addiction not as a moral failing, but rather as an illness, and they believe that those that are suffering from it should be helped rather than punished, which is a massive change, isn't it, in the way you think about these things?
I mean, the shift in public consciousness of addiction is almost more valuable than what they've done to help people into recovery. The fact that you can create a situation whereby the general public have a greater level of compassion and empathy than they did previously that's the most remarkable aspect of the whole story.
It makes all the. I totally agree. It makes all the difference. It's the change in the mindset.
Yeah.
And the people then in Portugal now tend to look at that and admit that drug addiction is a disease and it's treated with the same dignity as other diseases. So those people that are suffering from diabetes or hypertension or whatever, it's treated with this exactly in the same way as that, and seen from the outside point of view as exactly the same sort of issue. And that's a big change. I mean, it takes a long time to get there, but it is possible. If you look at the actual figures, when they first looked at introducing this law in Portugal, they reckon, as we said before, 1% of the population, over 100,000 people had opiate addiction, which is very high. Mm-hmm. We know now, 20 years down the line, nearly, that's dropped by about 80%. So it's a massive. And also on top of that, because you're getting people away from the drug of choice, especially the intravenous drug users, the rates of HIV and hepatitis have dropped dramatically as well. Mm-hmm. Everything seems to have dropped off in that area. All these very negative issues have started to be dealt with because of the way that it's been treated and the way it's been looked at, and a change of the mindset. Was there
any indication as to what the kind of net cost had been to the country, or the net financial benefit?
There aren't any actual figures on that I could find, because I wondered that if you could say, right, and this has boosted the GDP of the country by a certain percentage. I couldn't find that. Yeah, all we know is,
because it's difficult to see any downside in that story, isn't it?
There is, but the only thing you can find about the money side of it really is or the funding side of it, is that they took money away from, or that they spent less money on incarcerating the criminals. So we know how expensive that is.
Yeah.
So they've taken they've taken that money that previously would have been spent there and funded the rehabilitation centres and these panels and the ancillary services that go with helping these people.
Yeah.
So I like it. I've talked quite enthusiastically about it there. I feel like, quite seriously almost. It's not like us really, is it?
Not really. Well, that's a couple of times we've done that in the past 2 or 3 weeks. It's been quite serious.
We have. Yeah. We'll have to go back to just messing around in the future, perhaps.
Maybe the pandemic's had an impact on our
mindset. I think you're right, and I think it's. But when I was looking at it, it sort of makes me quite angry almost when you look at it and think, well, why don't other countries do this? Why don't they adopt it? Yeah. And it is a system. I was reading a paper written by a guy from Canada, and he's been lobbying his own government there for. So he's got he's part of a lobbying group that have been trying to get a similar situation over in Canada, because on the face of it, Canada looks like an idyllic country, and there's an awful lot going for it, which it has, but they still have a very bad drug problem there, and it needs to be addressed. And I think they've got a situation pretty much like Portugal, where they could do an awful lot with it if they change their mindset. And we can't expect the Americans at the moment to take it on board, I wouldn't have thought, but because they're very much ramping. I can't
imagine Donald Trump throwing a lot of money at rehabilitating.
No, he won't. No, I mean, it seems to be those sort of countries that like locking people up for any sort of reason. This is way outside of their thinking.
Yeah,
it doesn't work at all with their strategy.
That's very interesting. It's surprisingly interesting for you.
Well, the more I read about it, I knew I'd known about it for quite a long time. But the more you research it, the more you look at it, the more frustrated I get that we don't have a similar situation here. Yeah. I know so many people this would have helped, and it would have made it would have made a society a much more compassionate society overall. But it would have had a massive impact upon those people that are affected by the illness that I suffer from as well.
Yeah. And you're not familiar with the little Portuguese custard tarts?
No, but I'm going to acquaint myself with them now, because you've.
I feel like I should make some, but they're quite a bit tricky to make. We used to know someone Portuguese, and she could make them, but she went back to Portugal, which was a bit selfish. So yeah, I'm gonna go and see if I can find a recipe for them, and then if I make some, I'll take a picture of them and send it to you.
Exactly. I'll have a virtual tart with you. Yeah. Well, I don't think we're going to go to Portugal again anytime soon, but look to things, are we? So I'm not going to be able to go across there and taste them at source. So a local replica would be more than welcome, even if it is only virtual.
I'll keep you posted.
Thank you.
All right, Squire.
Excellent work.
All right. So I'll talk to you again next week.
And we'll talk again soon.
See you later.
Laters.
Bye.
Sideways was created by Graham Landy and Martin Pankhurst. If you want to read more about our work, visit grahamlandywellbeing.co.uk/sideways-podcast. You can follow us on Twitter, and you can email us to let us know what you think of the show and with any questions that you might have. And finally, we want to thank you for listening and ask that if you've enjoyed what you've heard, that you spread the word. And we'll see you next week.
She's a model and she's lovely.